Okay. In last class, we have seen that abstraction and then what is constructor. Today's class, we will see the access modifiers. That what are access modifiers and its advantages. Right. Right. Access modifiers are used to restrict the access to the variables or methods. Right. Where I can access, where I cannot access. Right. Access modifiers will tell us where the variable or method where I can access and where I cannot access the methods and variables. There are usually we will have four types of access modifiers. We have a private. Right. Let me create a private, default, protected, and then public. We have a four access modifiers: private, default, protected, public. Then where I can access, where I cannot access these variables. Suppose if I create a one private variable, there are mainly what are the places, right? These are the access modifiers. Then what are the places, right? Same class, right? Same class within the class and same package and outside package. Mm, Same class, same package, and then outside package, and then one more subclass. One more is subclass. Okay, one more is subclass. These are the four places where we can access the access modifiers, variables or methods. Right. If I create a one variable, private variable, if I create a private variable, I can access within the same class. All right. I can access the, I can access within the same class. Same package. If I create a private variable in the class, I can access within the same class, but I cannot access same package, another class. Same package means same class. We will make it as another class. Same package, another class. I cannot access. Outside package, I cannot. Same package itself, it's not allowing. We cannot access outside. And subclass also we cannot access. Right. Private variables or methods. Variables or methods can be accessible within the same class only. Wherever I have declared private variables or methods, I can access only within that class only. I cannot access anywhere else. Right. Default. If I create a default variables, I can access within the same class. I can access. I can access in the same package. I can access in the same package another class. Outside package, I cannot access. Subclass also, I cannot access. Subclass also, I cannot access. Protected. Right, protected. Protected, I can access within the same class. Protected variables are method. And the same package I can access. Outside package, I cannot access. Then what is the difference between default and protected? That comes under subclass. In subclass, I can access the protected variables or methods. Right, in inheritance, right, we'll see again that. Public variables, there is no restriction. I can access in the same class or same package, outside package or subclass. I can access anywhere. Private variables are accessible only within the same class. Private variables are methods. Public, I can access anywhere, no restriction. Right, what is the difference between default and protected? only protected variables are accessed within the subclass, but default variables I cannot access. All right, we'll see the examples. Okay, we'll see the example. Okay, let me create one package, access modifiers, and then we'll create a vehicle. So now we'll create an employee. We'll create an employee class. Okay, we'll create a one variable, private integer employee ID, private integer employee ID, and then default variables. How to declare default variables? If you don't give anything, any access modifier, it is called a default. If you try to give default, it will not allow. Right, it will not allow. We no need to define anything. We no need to give anything. It's called a default access. Right, then protected. Right, something employee address. Right, then public. Right, public. Will create like a double salary. Okay, double salary. Then we'll create a methods also. These are all variables, and then methods. We'll create a private method. Okay, something display employee ID. Right, a default method display employee name. Right, if you don't give any access modifier, that is a default one. Protected, and then public. Just display methods. That's it. Right now, if we create a main method, right, how to access these variables and methods within the same class? By creating the object of it. Right, we can create the object of it, and then we can access. Right, create the employee object. We can access object dot employee ID, employee name, employee address, employee salary. Right, all the methods. There is no restriction. Right, within the same class, I can access all the variables, private, default, protected, public. Within the same class, I can access everything. Right, there is no restriction. Now come to same package. Same package, we will create a one more class, something employee test. Okay, we'll create a main method. Right, fine. Same thing I will copy paste there. Otherwise, see employee. I will make it all enable. Okay, outside package, what is this? Same package, another class. Private variables I cannot access. Right? See, private variable employee. What it is showing error? What is the error? The field employed is not visible. Private variables are not accessible anywhere. Only it is visible within the class only. Private variables are methods. Are methods. Right. Then we have a default. Right. Default remaining three I can access. Right. Default protected public. I can access same package, another class. Same package, another class. Right. There is no restriction. Now come to one more level, outside package. Right. Now come to outside package. Suppose if we take same class, right, I will take same class, copy paste that in another package, maybe methods somewhere you can copy paste in another package. Okay, copy paste it. Okay, fine. Now first we have to import it. Right, packages concept we have learned, right? If you want to access another package class in another package, one package class in another class, we have to import it first. Import it. Now see, I cannot access private variables. Right, private is not accessible. Default is also not accessible. Protected also not accessible. Right, only public variable is accessible. Right, outside package, which one is access? Only public. Outside package, we can access only public. Right, now come to last level, subclass. Right, subclass means what? Parent and child. Suppose we will create a one child class. One child class. Right, I can extend the extends employee. Right, extends employee. I have created one class. One class. Okay, class. Okay, private variables anyway. Private variables we cannot access. Right. Employee ID. Suppose if you try to access it, that it will not visible. Whatever. Okay. Okay. Right. Employee ID is not visible. The visibility is not protected. Right. It is asking to change the protected. We cannot access. Oh, okay. Default variables we are able to access. The default is able to access protected. Default protected public. Right. I think here I think we will make it as a right default variables also able to access. I think maybe version we are using, right? Some versions it is not access. How to delete this? Okay, fine. Right. Default variables also we can access within the subclass. Right. Default variable protected public and methods also. Default method protected public. All methods we are able to access if you do the subclass. That means we are making employee as a parent class, child as subclass. In the subclass, we can access the other than private, all we can access. That is inheritance concept, right? A simple inheritance concept that we can get the parent class features and the child class. Right. Right. What are the access modifiers? Private, default, protected, public. These are the places. Same class, same package, another class, outside package, subclass. Right. In the same class, we can access everything. Right. Same class, we can access everything. Right. Right. You prepare with either horizontal way or vertical way. Right. If you prepare both, right, you will confuse about it. Right. It's better to have a, my suggestion is go with the horizontal way. It's very easy. Right. Private variable is accessible within the class. We cannot access anywhere else. Right. We cannot access anywhere else. Right. Private variables only accessible within the same class only. We cannot access anywhere. Default variables we can access same class, same package, but we cannot access outside package and subclass. Uh, we can access in the subclass also. Right. Default variables we can access same class, same package, subclass, but not outside package. Protected variables, all right, protected variable, we can access same thing. Right. Both the default and protected, we are getting the same features. And public, we can access everywhere. Public, we are able to access anywhere. Right. These are the different access modifier where we can access, where we cannot access private methods or variables. Right. Those are the access modifiers. Suppose a few more things. If I create, right, constructors we have learned. If you create a private constructor, what will happen? Right. Suppose if I create a private constructor, right, what will happen? That means I cannot create object anywhere else. Right. I am restricting. Right. If I use a private constructor, I cannot create a object of the class. Right. If you use the private. Right. If you know where to use it, that if you want to restrict the object creation, if you want to restrict the object creation, we will use the private. Otherwise, right, we will not. We will not. All right. This is the default constructor. It has a default access modifier. Default means that again outside package I cannot access. Right. Outside package I cannot access. That's why it is giving change the visibility to public. Right. Based on our requirement, we have to choose which access modifier we have to use either for variables or methods. Right. Those tips. For class level, what are the access modifiers we can use? Right. If I give private class, let's say illegal modifier class employee, only it will allow public abstract. Right. We have seen abstract class. We know public class. Final we will see later. It will come topic later. Right. It will allow only public abstract final keywords. Only these public modifier, abstract and final keywords. Other than this, it will not allow here. For variables, I can use private, public, default, protected, right? Abstract will not allow, abstract not allowed to variables, only for methods or classes, right? Not for variables. Right, for constructor, we will have it will have private, default. Let's suppose if we do protected, is it allow? It will allow. Public will allow, private will allow, default will allow, all will allow. Right, based on the requirement, we have to choose which one we need to use. For method also, it will allow all, and abstract also will allow. Abstract method also will allow. Right. These are the access modifiers. Right. Where to use and right how to use it. And then coming to I think package we have already covered. We'll see the variables. Right. What are the different variables we have? Right. We have three types of variables. Right. Right. Variables. What are the variables? Variables are used to store the data. Right. Variables are used to store the data. And there are we can based on where we will create, right? The place where we will create, it will have a different naming conventions. We will have a local variables, rather than instance variables, rather than public variables. Okay, three types of variables. That what are local variables? The variables which are created inside a method, the variables which are created inside a method is called a local variables. That the variables which are created inside a method. Suppose we have a public void display. Right, inside if I create anything integer ID, right, this is a local variable. Right, the variables which are created inside a method is called a local variables. Before using it, before using, suppose if I want to print it, before using local variables, I must we must initialize with some value, some default value. Some default value. Otherwise, it will say compilation error. Default values must be initialized before using it. Before using it. Right, fine. And then what else? What points? Right. The memory for the local variables will be created when start execution of display method. When display method is called, memory will be created for the local variables. Once execution is done, memory will be removed. Right. It will destroy the memory for these variables. Right. These will be visible within this. method scope only. It will not visible outside. Right. These are all local variables. Right. We'll see example. Right. If you see, this is I can create a local variable right inside here into employee ID. See, I can create integer employee ID with the same name. It will allow. That if I try to print this employee ID, what it will say? The local variable must not have been initialized, right? Must initialize with the default or some value. We have to initialize with the some value. Before using the local variables must be initialized. Right, we can create either in the constructor or in the method, right, wherever. Right, the variables which are declared within the method or constructor is called a local variables. Local variables must be initialized before using it, and the memory will be created before starting the execution of the method and will be destroyed once the execution is done. Right, next one is instance variables. Instance variables. The variables which are declared outside a method or a block or constructor. Right, the variables which are declared outside a method inside a class. Outside a method inside a class is called instance variables. Right, instance variables, whenever we create the object, default values will be assigned to the values. Default values assigned to the instance variable. Right, these variables are accessible by using the object. Every object will have different values. Every object will have different values. Right, whenever we create the object, it will assign with a default values. And the memory will be created in the heap memory. Right, because whenever object is created, memory will be created for all these instance variables. So, right, memory will be created at a heap memory. Right, instance variables which are we will declare outside a method and inside a class, and the values are initialized with whenever object is created. Whenever object is created, right, default values will be assigned and the memory will be created in the heap map. Right, that is about the instance variables. Right, instance variables are accessible using only object. Right, we have to create the object, we can access it. Right, we can create the object, we can access it. And inside method directly we can use it. Right, inside a method, so directly we can use it. Right, but in the static method, we will see this concept, why we have created object here. Right, without object, we cannot access in the static method. That we will see later. Right, inside a method, so directly we can access instance variables. Right. Usually, instance variables, how we will access, suppose if we want to access in another class, right, directly I cannot access instance variable. I have to create the object. I have to create the object and call that instance variables. Right. Then one more is, sorry, here something I have created wrong. Right, static or class variables. Static or class variables. Right, local variables, instance variables, static or class variables. Static, static class. Alright, static or class variables. What are static or class variables? Static variables also created outside a class. Right. Outside a method, inside a class. Outside a method, inside a class. But suppose I will create a one public string company name. Okay, company name. I will create as a static variable. Right, the variables which are declared with static, right, is called as static variables. Right, we will see deep in the next next topic, just we will see. And just here we will see the variable which is declared with a static keyword is called a either static variable or class variable. This belongs to class, not to the object. Whenever we will create object in the heap memory, it will not create. Only instance variables will be created. This is common to all the objects. This is common to all the objects because company name is same for all the employees. Right. We'll see more about static. Right. Static variables can be accessed without object. Without object. Right. Those we will see later in depth concept of static. Right. Local variables are the variables which are declared within a constructor, block, or method is called a local variables. Local variables must be initialized before using, and memory will be created whenever execution starts and destroys once the execution is done. Instance variables, the variables which are outside a method inside a class are called instance variables. Instance variables will be right. Instance variables have a default values when object is created. When object is created, instance variables assigned with default values and memory will be created in the heap memory. Right, the variables which are declared as a static. Right, these are also outside a method. Inside a class, outside a method, the variables which are declared with the static keyword is called a class or class variables or static variables. Right, these are the different types of variables. These are different types of variables we have. Right, now we will see in-depth concept of static. Right. Right. If you have any questions, you can ask. That's fine. Otherwise, we'll continue. Okay, static keyword. What is the static keyword? Right. What is the use of it? Right. Static keyword we can use it variables. We can use for variables and methods. Static variable, static methods, and static block also. We can also have a static block. Right. What is the advantage of it? Right. Before this, right, we'll see simple examples so that we'll understand more. Right. I have a class employee. Right. It has a employee ID, employee name. Then one more string, company name. Okay, company. Here company name I will give as a right. Company name is same for all. So we can directly assign it. Something ABC company. Right. Now I am creating object for it. Employee even equal to new employee. New employee. Right. Whenever I will create an object, what will happen? It will create the memory inside the heap. Right. Whenever I will create a multiple objects, it will create the right memory. This is the heap memory. So right heap memory. Then it will create the right object for memory for these three variables. Right. This is the employee one. Right. Maybe employee two, employee three. Suppose you have created 1,000 employees. Thousand times memory will be created. Right. Now, what is the drawback here? ID should be unique for every employee. That is fine. Name also fine. But company name is same, right? For all the employees, company name is same. But why we require to create memory for every time? Right. Why we need to create memory every time? Right. To avoid that, to save some memory, right? We will make it as a static. So that what will happen? It is not part of static means it is not belongs to object. it is belongs to class. That means for a company name, memory will be created separately in the stack memory, right? In the static memory, right? It will be created memory for company name, right? Only one time memory will be created, and every object we can refer to this memory, right? Class variables are right. Static variables are belongs to class, not to the object. That means whenever I created object, it will not create memory for the company name. It will not create. It will create only for ID and name. Right. Whenever I run the program, static memory, right, it will create memory for static variables. It will create memory only once. Only once. Right. That is staticness to static keyword is used to save the memory. Right. And also drawback also there. Right. And also drawback is also there. Right. This is common to all. Right. This is common to all. Suppose all the 100 employees. Suppose if anyone tried updated, right, it will reflect to all. Right. This is the common memory. If any one employee updated company name, it will affect all the employees. Will affect all the employees. So whenever you are using static, right, we must be very careful. Right. We must be very careful while using the static. Right. Then how to restrict that? We'll see that. That now static can be used at variable level, method level, block level. Right. Static keyword is used to save the memory and it is not belongs to object. So how to call static variables or static methods? By using the class name. Right. By using the class name, I can access the static variables and methods. I don't require any object. That's why, let's see, main method also static. Right. Who will call main method? Right. Whenever we start the program, who will call main method? That is JVM will call. How it will call? Right. Because why main method is static? Because to save, no need to create an object. If I want to call this method, how to call usually I have to create the employee object. Then memory will be created. Right. So that's why to save the memory, right, we will make it as a static and JVM will call with class name employee.main. Right. Public means it will be visible. Right. Without public, suppose if we try to create a private, what will happen if we try to run it? See, you cannot see run. It is not visible to JVM. Right. Only if it is a public, then only it will be visible to JVM. It will run this by using class name dot main method. That's why static, why main method is static. Right. See, now it is visible. And it also we can also pass arguments to the main method. While running the main method, we can also pass. I will tell you later how to pass. Right. We can also pass the arguments to the main method. Right. Now we'll see the example here. Right. We'll create a, see, already we have created, right? Company name is static. That means it is belongs to class, not to the object. Right. But it will allow. Right. But if you want to call this, it will allow to call by using the object employee dot, right, company name. But see here it will give warning. The static field should be accessed in static wave only. It should be because it is not belongs to the object. So we have to call employee dot company name. Employee dot company. If you want to call any static method, suppose if I make it as a static method, this one. Right, there are, I cannot make it. There are some rules, we will learn that. Now we'll create one more method. Right, public void display company name. Okay, I will make it as a static, this one. Right, this one how to call? By using class name. Employee dot display company name. Static variables or methods are used to call by using class. But within the class, same class, I don't require. Right. If I want to call outside another class, then we will refer employee dot company. Within the same class, I don't require. Right. Within the same class, directly I can call the static variables and static method. I can refer it. I can refer it. Right. Then few more points we should know. Inside static method, main is a static method, right? Inside a static method, I can access static variables, static methods, right? I can access static variables, static methods, but I cannot access instance variables, right? If we try to access employee ID, what it will say, cannot match static reference to the non-static field, right? Inside a static reference, right? This is a static block. Main method is a static. I cannot directly access non-static variable inside a static method. That's why we created object. We cannot access instance variables directly inside a static method. That's why we have created object and we have assigned the values. By using the object, we can access the variables or methods, instance variables or methods. But inside, right, but non-static method. This is non-static method. Right. I can access static variables, non-static variables, and also static. It will allow. Right. Non-static method will allow static variables or static, non-static variables or static variables. Both it will allow. Right. Both it will allow. But in static, it will allow only static variables or methods. Directly we can call. Instance variables or methods we need to call by using object. By using object. Right. One more thing. What is that static block? We can have a static block. Right. How to create static block? Static at open and close brackets. Right. Why? What is the use of static block? Static block is executed and initializes the right. If you want to initialize the static variables, right? If you want to execute any code before the constructor execution, that means before the object creation. Right. When it will be executed? Whenever class is loading, JVM is loading the class, it will execute it. It will be executed. Before the constructor itself, it will be executed. If I want to initialize any static fields, I can initialize inside a static block. Inside a static block. Right, I can initialize it. Right, company name equal to. Let's suppose if I comment this one. Right, if we comment this one, this will become a null only, right? Static, right? I cannot initialize. Suppose if you try to initialize here, why it is alone? Okay, we have to make it as a final. This concept we will learn later. Final, right? Right. Static block is used to initialize the static variables, or if you want to execute any code before the constructor execution. Suppose constructor is there, we'll create a constructor. Right, a default constructor, public. Suppose employee, just default constructor. when it is not. Okay, default constructor. That's it. Then just system dot out dot println constructor is executed. Right, that's it. Oh, already we have, right? Okay, already we have. Let me delete this. Okay, fine. Now if we try to execute it, run as Java application. Right, first it will be executed static block. Right, first it is executed static block, then constructor. That means when our object is created, we have created object, then constructor is executed. Right, remaining thing it is displayed all the values. Right. For the static variables, when memory will be created, whenever I try to run, JVM will load the class, memory will be created for the static variables. Static variables. And also it will execute static blocks. Right. But for instance variables, memory will be created whenever object is created. Right. These are the some of the rules. Right. Where to access, where we cannot access. Those are all interview questions they will ask. Right. That is about the static. Right. Okay. We'll see tomorrow remaining. Right. We'll. Right. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask. Anyone has any questions? Previous topics, anything? Previous topics or current topic, anything? Right, fine. If you don't have any questions, we will meet tomorrow and we'll see final keyword, this and super and exception handling collection. Very important topics. Right. Please join the all the classes. Right. Right. Just right. Whenever right, I am not seeing right much people just